Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Across the DinerVerse. Searching for the heart and soul of America, one diner at a time. How you doing? I'm John Murphy, writer and producer on the CBS Science and Technology series Innovation Nation, which airs Saturday mornings. Check your local TV guide for airtime in your area, and thanks for tuning in. And now I travel the country, talking to people over coffee, chorizo, and huevos rancheros about their lives, their careers, and how they're dealing with where we are right now as a country. This is episode 25, and this is also the season 1 finale edition of Across the DinerVerse. I'll be taking a couple of weeks off to enjoy the holiday weekend and prep for season 2, which will premiere later on this summer. I'll be doing podcasts from the San Francisco Bay Area, New York City, Long Island, and from down south. Really looking forward to getting back to the East Coast and meeting new people and hearing their stories. If you'd like to become a patron of the podcast, please visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/DinerVerse. And for as little as $3, you can ask me questions or send along comments about the show. Throw out questions for me to ask other guests. You can get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and content, or ask me to cat sit. Remotely, of course. This week's episode was recorded at Club Calpella in the tiny town of Calpella, California, which is about 5 miles north of Ukiah, which is about 100 miles north of San Francisco, on the way to the giant redwood forest. And obviously a lot of vineyards and wineries and pot. Lots of weed, man. Ukiah has more dispensaries per capita than any other city in the state of California. The biggest one I saw there was called Cookies. No, different kind of cookies. But hey, if you imbibe, by all means, Ukiah, California is where you want to go. Now, the reason I went all the way up there was to meet an emerging country artist by the name of Johnny Young, who released his first album of original songs back in 2020. And after busting his ass and with the grassroots help of his fans, he actually got radio airplay across the country, in fact, across the globe, I believe. Shared concert stages with Chris Stapleton, who's a superstar, Keith Urban, and Clint Black. He did the Warped Tour and CMA Fest, among others. All, get this, without a record deal. So no big marketing hype machine behind him, just great songs, great musicianship, and the will to chase his dream. We're going to talk about the music biz, how streaming killed the ability for music artists to make real money, and of course, listen to his music. If you want to learn more about him, check out JohnnyYoungCountry.com. That's JohnnyYoungCountry, all one long word.com. And let's just get right into it. Johnny Young, it's great to meet you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
And we're in this bar, which is part of a restaurant, which is part of a packaged liquor store. It's just all one thing called... What is it called?
Club Calpella.
And what does the name Calpella mean? Do you have any idea? We're here in Calpella, California, way up northern California. What is Calpella?
Boy, I don't know the name origin. I don't.
We'll have to talk to the owner. Who's the owner of this place?
That would be Tammy and Steve Bogart.
Okay.
And this is Bogart's Bar.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
How long has this place been here?
47 years, I believe.
I mean, you can feel this bar is really lived in.
It is, yes.
But it's, it looks great. It's got the old coolers for all the beer and everything, all the wood doors and the latches and the freezers. It's great. Dogs were in here just moments ago.
Oh, yeah. It's very down home around here.
Are you from this area, Mendocino County, California?
I moved here about 10 years ago, but I'm a transplant. I've had some formative years down Southern California, as well as Portland, Oregon.
All right, so your story is kind of out, as you know, the reason I contacted you is because on an earlier podcast, I was in Salome, Arizona, at this diner there.
We've had Johnny Young, the country artist, is up and coming with Outlaw and country song and a couple other songs out there right now. He came through here and he spends 5 months in this area just going around playing for us. We love it. So that's also nice having a country star come in.
Selfless man who lent a helping hand.
why aren't you in Nashville? Why aren't you living, breathing country music 24/7 in Nashville? Why are you here?
Nashville is a big city, and I like small towns. I write my music indicative of the areas in which I'm in. It's hard for me to write country songs in the city. So I go to Nashville to work, but I came here to relax, but it's also very, it's the right geographic area for my tour schedule as well. So it's right in the middle of the West Coast, in which I tour quite often.
Okay.
So it makes sense for me to be here. But I get lots of invitations to go back to Nashville and work and live. But it's just really too fast-paced for me.
You don't want the big mansion in Franklin, Tennessee, which is the big, hoity-toity suburb out there.
It doesn't really suit me. No. I'm much happier with a couple dogs and some acreage. And
you don't want to go next door to Tim and Faith's house for a barbecue and some beers and knock out some songs and then, stagger home.
Well, that doesn't sound like a bad idea, but, But yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in cities and stuff like that, and it just doesn't suit me. It's getting busier and busier as time goes on, and I don't even really play cities. I go for small towns such as Siloam and other little places where people are just more down home and accommodating and sweet and real, and that's what I'm about these days. So maybe that's why I'm not a big star, but to these people, I'm somebody. So.
But you've been with some big acts. You've been with some big tours. You did the Warped Tour.
Yeah.
You've done some big stadium shows. You've kind of lived that life.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in just a second. So is this just kind of a respite away from all of that? And you want to carve out your own country music career that you want to live in the area where you want to live?
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's good to be recognized and appreciated for the music I'm making. But by no means do I need to get into the big machine of the record, business or the music business, as you will.
And what is that machine like today?
It's a lot different than it used to be, as you know. It's more, online presence, those kinds of numbers surrounding that, playlist, streaming, and then hopefully touring, can pay some bills and selling merchandise on the backside of that. But it really is an uphill battle trying to get a good presence online and stuff like that. So I play small towns. It's much more rewarding.
So you're a very grassroots type of artist.
Yes, I love it.
Can artists make money streaming today? I mean, I don't really fully understand. It seems to me like when a Taylor Swift, and who's huge, the biggest star on the planet today, is releasing albums and gets hundreds of millions of streams, but she's only getting like 2 cents or 1 cent per stream. How can they even do that? How can they just take her creative work and just monetize it to so little amount for her and they get to keep the revenue? How did that even happen?
I don't know. It's criminal.
Back in May 2021, the New York Times published an article written by Ben Cesario entitled "Musicians Say Music Doesn't Pay." And this is basically what Ben was writing about. Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and others is the dominant mode of music consumption, making up 83% of recorded music revenues in the U.S. And Spotify, which now has well over 350 million users around the world, including 160 million paying subscribers, paid out more than $5 billion to music rights holders in 2020. Spotify, Apple, and most other major platforms use a system of royalty distribution, and in this model, all the money collected from subscribers or ads for a given month goes into a single pot, which is then divided by the total number of streams. So let's say Taylor Swift had 5% of all streams that month. She and the companies that handle her music get 5% of the pot, meaning that effectively she gets 5% of each user's money, even those who have never listened to her music. Now, critics say this system favors artists with mass appeal, and features like playlisting, where songs are selected for curated lists with sometimes gigantic followings, and algorithmic recommendations, can also contribute to a network effect in which popularity leads to more popularity, putting niche genres or new artists at a disadvantage and extending the gulf between music haves and have-nots. Industry estimates put Spotify's payout rate for recordings at about $4,000 per million streams, or less than half a cent per stream. Think about that. Half a penny every time you listen to a song. And since that money may pass through a record company before making its way to an artist, hundreds of millions of streams may be needed for a musician to net anything substantial, including a superstar like Taylor Swift.
And then you have to think about the producers, the songwriters, the musicians who make the music come to life. It's a whole myriad of problems for everybody involved, and that's why you see her out touring. In fact, she's touring without a band right now.
She's singing the tracks?
Yeah, and it's perfectly acceptable.
And people were paying $1,000 tickets just to get front row seats or whatever.
People don't realize the difference these days because they've been fed it in this way for so long now. I mean, it's becoming, people don't really care about the whole artistry and the work behind the scenes it takes, you know.
So creating an album, spending months writing, recording, producing, finishing, mastering an album, that's all a lost leader just to get people excited for you to go out on tour and perform live for them. And that's where you make the money.
Yeah, it's like in the mall, you know, you see people out with the little sample cups or spraying the perfume. That's what the song is these days.
Is it just the song or the album? Is it about singles or albums now?
It's all about singles these days because, I mean, really that's how you keep the momentum going. Albums are more of a physical thing, it seems, and people aren't buying physical units, although there is a resurgence in vinyl. Vinyl's starting to come back, so that's very hopeful. You know, people are starting to hook on to albums again. But yeah, I mean, I cut a CD and went for retail. I avoided the whole streaming Spotify thing for a long time, and then eventually started releasing singles posthumously, if you will, after the release of the album. You know, because it's just the way of the world. You know, you want to get your music out there, but at the same time, it takes so much time and money to put it together. You don't just want to chalk it up as a loss because it's not very inspiring to continue on in that way.
Well,
you know?
I know.
Music careers are more short-lived these days. Songs that come out are like flavor of the week. And it'd be interesting to look back in 10 or 20 years and see how many of these quote-unquote hit songs are actually still being sung by people and remembered.
I agree. You know, I think it's like cotton candy, very disposable.
And it's very visual, too. You know, without the television and the computer and the internet, you know, that's what is kind of the catalyst for selling music now. It's not based on just sound and the experience from the radio. You almost have to have some kind of visual support there and reinforcement in getting the music out there. But the music seemed like it's an afterthought compared to the image. So with that, I think there's just not as much care and love for really quality, good music these days, you know, at least not out of the streaming, you know, demographic. I find people over 40, 50, they still get it.
I read your bio and you got started very, very young.
I did my first show when I was 5. And
what could you do when you were 5?
Well, I got on stage in dressed up as Gene Simmons from KISS, and I did a lip sync song in front of the whole student body and their parents. The parents thought it was devil music, and the kids loved it. And I was signing autographs. I got a girlfriend in first grade, and I had a homemade suit that kind of resembled what he wore on stage, shower curtain cape, and my mom had knit a vest and put my dad's beer tab collection for chains in this thing and Christmas lights and would plug it into the wall backstage so it would light up. Well, the kids loved it, and so did I. I loved the experience. I was like, there's nothing I want to do other than this the rest of my life. And so I've just been sticking with it, and it's been working out.
It's got to be a great feeling when you perform a song, sing, act, whatever, and you get that instantaneous response from a live audience. It must feed you to a level where it's just like euphoric.
It's great, you know. I don't even need an audience, really. I just love playing that much. It's really, music is good therapy for me. It touches my soul, and I hope my joy resonates throughout the crowd. And I can look out there and I see people enjoying it. It just comes back. We go back and forth and we take it up tier by tier, and it's a really good experience. I feel really blessed to be able to do what I do, you know.
Have you ever met Gene Simmons from KISS?
I have not.
Oh.
I've met Paul Stanley.
Did you tell him that story?
No. He was being mobbed by people.
Oh, I see.
I literally just got to say, I love you, man, and kept it moving.
Yeah. All right, so go from 5-year-old Gene Simmons to how did you start your music career?
My dad was a songwriter and dabbled in songwriting before he met my mom and doing little things here and there. So there was always a little nylon string guitar on the wall. When I was right after that show, they bought me a drum set. That didn't last long because I banged the heck out of that thing and drove them crazy. But then I gravitated to guitar, stuck with it. Luckily, there was a couple kids that were older in the neighborhood, had a little band, kept me inspired. And by the time I was 12, 13, I was starting my own band and playing like little functions here and there, and just stuck with it to the point where one thing led to another, and eventually I was playing in bar bands and then doing tours. And
who were your musical influences?
I got country music was coming out of the kitchen, but I was going off what the older kids were feeding me too on the streets. So it was everything from KISS to the Cars to country music, to like Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers and stuff like that, Loretta Lynn. So I always had the country music in my blood, and it was always influenced into me. My first concert was a country music concert, that I attended. But yeah, so it's always been there. And when my father passed away a few years ago, I just decided I was going to go full bore and make a country album as a tribute to him. Well, this album has taken off like nothing else I've done in my years past. So I've just been sticking with it and going with what's working, and I love it. And again, I'm just very lucky and feel blessed to be able to do it.
Now, one of your hit songs is called Outlaw.
Yeah.
Is that about your grandfather, though, right?
Yeah. But it's written from, it's for a friend's grandfather, actually. It's not about my grandpa.
I see, okay.
But yeah, sometimes I write songs that are just kind of based off of experiences from other people, or I'm inspired to write something off the top of my head.
Yeah, the kind of guy who always took pride, making sure he could provide. Stood up straight, never ran, couldn't find a more selfless man. Real outlaw. He was an outlaw. He was an outlaw. I call him Grandpa.
That song has caught a lot of traction and kind of set the pace for a lot of things to come.
You're influenced by all these groups. You form your own group and everything. How did you get into the country music scene and get to Nashville and start playing on all these records? How many different albums have you recorded as a musician?
A little over 20,
All right.
in and out of bands and stuff.
Okay. Were you ever a studio musician in Nashville for hire?
No.
Okay, all right.
No, when the pandemic struck in 2020, I found myself homeless and not knowing where.
You were homeless.
Well, yeah, I just ended a relationship, and so I moved out of the place. My father died about a month earlier, and I was looking at my whole calendar had dissolved. All my shows had gone away because of COVID. So I stepped back and I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And I got a little savings. Well, I went to Nashville and I found that some guys were working in a very safe environment, and working remotely a little bit here and there as well, just to be safe because of the times with COVID and everything. And that's where I set up shop for the next 6 months and got this record done. So I just tried to, turn it around. I couldn't even, out here in the West, all the motels had closed up, and I couldn't even find a place to stay. And I was like, I got to get out of here, So I went to a red state, where they still had some stuff that was open.
So you got to survive, right?
Yeah.
You got to go where you can make some money.
Well, I was spending money. That was all I was doing, but I didn't know where the world was going to go. All I knew is that I had to just make this record. The songs just came pouring out of me, and I was like, I'm just going to do it, and I don't really care what happens from it. These are songs from my heart, and they're all the truth. If you listen to them and the lyrics, it's all true stories. So I just decided I was going to do it, and went out there, and luckily had got in with the right people.
Yeah, you're very blessed. The producer that you worked with, his name is Smith Curry, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Isn't he a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame?
He is. Yeah.
He's a steel guitar player?
Steel guitar, slide guitar. He's worked with Taylor Swift and several others, big name artists.
How did you bump into him and get involved with him?
It was just a brief. I was looking online, and
you were looking online,
yeah,
for a producer.
Yeah,
I'm assuming he was out of work too.
Well, he was still working. They were working out there, but in a very sanitary, remote kind of way. They weren't just hugging on each other. Everybody had their isolation booths and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I was very lucky to happen upon him. Because there are a lot of scammers out there too. You can fall in with the wrong people. They'll take your money and not give you what you had intended to get out of the deal. And I was a little nervous in going out there blindly and meeting Smith, but it worked out. He's just a super great guy. He knows everybody. He works with some of the big heavy hitters in Nashville and has for years. And
out of all the people that approach him, why do you think he said yes to you?
I think we just kind of hit it off. He realized where I was, what was going on, and he thought I was a nice guy, and that's kind of the consensus. It really wasn't based on my caliber of musicianship or anything like that, or my resume. He just was like, "Yeah, this is a good guy. Let's help this guy out and make him a great record." So the team. But
you are an accomplished guitar player. I'm sure he resonated with that. You do know how to shred pretty good.
Well, thank you. Not a lot of these people from the last few years forward don't even know I can really play guitar like that.
Where the gravel turns to gold, way out past Road Day and the grapevine rose. Got a big guitar in a big yard, a whole lot of way out back. In fact, we're gonna do a little picking and sipping right here where it's at. It's just another day in Northern California.
The bands that you formed when you were a kid, were they more rock bands, rock oriented?
Oh yeah. I had long hair as a kid and earrings. You can probably see it. One lobe's longer than the other, and I would just
Was it like alternative rock, like Pacific Northwest, like Pearl Jam and Nirvana and that type of style?
A little bit of that stuff, everything to like really hard, fast, heavy metal to stuff that's more poppy, and some British rock. I'm a songwriter, and I'm also, I'm kind of a Dalmatian. I get in with certain people and feel their energy, and I kind of conform to that and try to do what's best for the project, and I pride myself on being able to do that, and I love all kinds of music from jazz to classical, so there's really nothing I won't scoff at, as long as it's good and has heart, I'm in on it. I'm on board.
But the country music resonates with your heart as far as writing songs and telling stories.
It does. It's my background, too. I mean, I can look back on my earliest childhood memories and hear those songs coming from the kitchen, Yeah. I didn't like them as much as I do now. I didn't know what they were back then, but it's just kind of where I'm at right now, I've got a lot to write about, and songs come out like they do. I'm not exclusively a country writer. Sometimes I'll write songs that are not even anywhere near country music, but they just come out, and I can't deny them. I just do it. So. And
how does the song come to you? What ways do lyrics and or chords and melodies come to you?
Sometimes it'll just pop in my head. I'll have like a catchy little line that'll come in, or a melody from a guitar part, and there's no real one way that I write. Sometimes I'll write for the song and the music, and sometimes the music comes after the lyrics do. So. I just try to take in life experiences and write accordingly.
So the album is called Johnny Young.
Self-titled.
Good name. The title track, or not the title track, but the lead track, Life is a Country Song. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, as I told you, that was the story of everything imploding in 2020. And basically, I just spell it all out. the ups and downs, and it's really indicative of a country song. I started looking at my own life and saying, this is kind of, this sounds just like a country song, everything I'm going through. So I'm going to write it. And it just came out really easy,
Lost my daddy, said goodbye to the dog. Lost my woman 'cause I couldn't find me a real job. I wish I could go back in time, press a button and rewind. Back to when I was young, having so much fun, getting love on every night. But when your life is a country song, ain't be no right without a little bit of wrong. Take the good with the bad, and that's the truth. Say the truth. Living hard and hardier, cheating hard for lessons learned, going down the same lost highway. My life is a country song. It's a country song.
How long did it take you to write it?
That song?
Yeah.
Oh, 3 minutes. All I had to do was just write down what I'm
So
going
you literally
through.
just write, this is all the shit that's happening to me right now. Here's some chords, and boom, I got a song.
Yeah, the first line is, lost my daddy, said goodbye to the dog, lost my woman because I couldn't find a real job, and that was really what was going on, and everything else was just kind of followed and fell into place,
We'll just go down the track list. I want to get all the stories of the song. So, One Bar Town.
Written about this place.
We're sitting in this One Bar Town.
Yep.
Inspiration right here.
Yep.
The Club Calpella.
Yep. It's a one-bar town. Yep. These little towns, and everybody's always saying one horse town, kind of is the saying, and I wanted to change it up a little bit. So, again, I just try to write what I know.
Get out of this one more town, drive it into the sun and stare it down. Take a chance, cause a little stir if you're up for it. I'm down, girl. Yeah, I'm down, girl. Yeah, I'm down, girl. Yeah, I'm down, girl.
How often do you play here?
Not too often, but I always try to come back, and I'm doing a residency every Tuesday throughout the month. And then things pick up, I leave again and go on the road. But I always try to come back here and play for these people because they're so darn nice.
Now, you say outlaw. You wrote that about a friend's grandfather. What inspired you to write that for somebody else?
I've never really been too connected to my grandparents, so I couldn't really write it firsthand because I didn't know them as well as I probably should have. But moreover, the song's kind of about the outlaw being a person who has values in which are kind of lost on today's society, like stopping to help out a stranger, opening a door for somebody you don't know, saying hello to a stranger on the street, and within the song, that's what makes this guy an outlaw. It's the fact that he holds on to these values. Not
fading
really
away.
They're fading away these days. The world's changing. It's becoming fast, sensitized to a lot of people,
It's becoming a world of self. It's all about me and only my needs.
Yeah, and I don't know what's brought that on, but yeah, we got to get back to caring about each other a lot more. So.
And grace has gone out the window.
Oh, man.
I mean, the forgiveness and the grace of somebody making an honest mistake and treading on you by mistake and just self-righteous rage.
Yeah.
Goes from 0 to 60 really fast.
Yep. There's a lot of that going on, and common courtesy is in a downturn right now. But I still have hope. I still have hope in the human race. We can pull it together. I hope it takes something really good as opposed to something really bad happening in order to pull us together. But I believe it's achievable. There's a lot of good people out there, but society as a whole, we've got some problems to fix for sure.
The album Room Number 9. What the hell happened in Room Number 9?
Well, after I broke up with my girlfriend and came back from Nashville, I was staying at the local motel here, and they always gave me room number 9. And so I was like, room number 9. And I was like, it just kind of kept singing this thing, and it kind of reminded me of some old school country.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of wrote it,
I'm feeling just fine if I just give it some time. Living out all of my days in room number 9.
I'm very curious about this one. Dallas went vegan.
I wrote this song for a larger act as a songwriter to strictly just pitch it to them, and I penned it kind of in a style in which they were putting music out.
Can you tell us the name of the act?
Midland.
Okay.
And so I sent it to them, and they listened to it, but they passed on it. So I decided I was going to release it myself. But basically, it just kind of explains how Dallas-Fort Worth was such a cow town at one point. But then I went down there and checked it out, and, there's this whole kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, but there's a resurgence of, different mindsets, and it's really a changing town now. And you can find like little vegetarian restaurants and a lot more culture than you used to be able to find there.
Right.
So that's being I was pitching it to a Texas band. I based it around a little geographic area in which I felt was going to be comfy for them. But when they passed on it, I was like, well, I'm going to cut it myself. I sent it out to Smith, and he's like, this is a great song, let's cut it. So we did.
They say that Dallas went vegan, but I don't believe in leaving this town. After all this mistreatment, we're finally seeing things eye to eye. Can't avoid all the changing for worth rearranging those cowtown city nights. They say that Dallas went vegan, but I don't see us leaving this town. They say that Dallas went vegan, but I don't see us leaving this town. No.
When you cut a song with Smith Curry and his team of musicians, what's that process like? Is it all remote, or do you actually go to Nashville and sit in a studio, and how does it work?
I do both. It just kind of depends on my schedule and budget. The first few years in 2018, pre-pandemic, is when I met Smith. And we started recording right before the pandemic struck and doing a couple little singles. And from that, Outlaw came out of that. And this was previous to me thinking about doing a tribute album, and all that stuff had happened. But I went out there and met the team. They literally come into the studio that day blind to what's going on, and there's charts waiting for them. We listen to the song a couple times. We run it. I'm in the vocal booth doing a scratch vocal, which is like a rough that probably won't stick, but it's there for reference. And these guys are so talented and experienced with this. We go in there and we'll knock out a song in a matter of hours, minutes, depending on what's going on. But it's an all-star cast of players. And
are you paying them out of pocket yourself for them to come in?
Yeah, there's no label involved. There's no executive producer. And if it's not my fans helping me out, with buying merchandise and stuff like that and doing those kinds of campaigns.
So this is a self-funded production. There's no record company behind you doing this at all?
Nope.
Do you mind telling me what it costs to track a song with these studio caliber musicians who I'm assuming, have played on great albums, Grammy-winning albums, big stars, whether it's Brooks and Dunn or Keith Urban or Chris Stapleton or whoever.
Yeah,
these guys have all played with those guys.
They have over 100 number one hits between them.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you mind sharing how much it costs to bring these guys in for a day and finish a song? What does that cost you out of your pocket?
Just to get the bones done, right? There's still a lot more to do afterwards. It's about $5,000 to $1,000 per song.
Well, that's not bad.
It's not bad. It really isn't. That gets the basic tracks, gets the bones and the foundation.
These are top musicians that have, as you said, over 100 number one hit records between them.
Yeah, I may have been involved with Grammy Award-winning artists, or albums that have gone platinum, what have you. But yeah, they have to work too, and in their off time, they take on these different sessions in which,
All right,
it
so
could be me or it could be, somebody, a household name, but they're very down to earth and modest and good guys and girls, which allows, them to keep working. And so it's a great thing. It's something you can't find pretty much anywhere else.
All right, so you get the basic tracks down, and then what's the process?
Well, once the music's kind of set, then it's time to do the real vocals. We'll go into the vocal booth, and that's another, layer of payments and all that other stuff and experience. It all goes mixed together, and then we send it off for mastering. And then there's duplication if we're going to do physical copies after that. So there's like 4 or 5 levels of production,
So what's the total investment to get a complete finished song that can get radio airplay, get streaming, go on a CD? What's the total final cost for one song?
Well, I would say probably about $1,200 to $1,500 after mastering, which isn't bad.
I know it isn't. It sounds really reasonable.
It is, but in this day and age, though, with streaming, think about how many streams it takes to make $1,500.
Oh yeah,
so you don't
150 million.
You don't make it back. That's the thing. You have to get out with the physical copies, pound the pavement. In fact, when I said I avoided the streaming services, I went after the local hardware conglomerate here. We started selling CDs on the shelves at the hardware store, and I started hitting up all the Ace hardware stores nationally. In fact, they almost took me on to sell nationally. I was really close to doing it. It didn't work out, unfortunately, but it was a lot of work. But I wanted to sell physical copies. I didn't want to do the streaming thing, and I avoided it as long as possible. But
so you are being streamed now.
Well, yeah, that's how you're able.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
listen,
I heard you on Apple. I have my Apple Music, and you're right on here.
Yeah, that's.
How big of a royalty check have you gotten from Apple?
I don't think I've seen 10 cents from those guys, but
10, not even 10 cents.
I don't think so, but I just don't check those numbers because I know how much it.
Hold on a second. Hey, there's some money for you, buddy.
Thank you. There's Apple. That's what is that? Let's count this up here. 47 cents?
47 cents in my pocket. There you go.
How many streams on Spotify would it take to make 47 cents?
I'm sorry.
It's probably 4,000 spins or something like that. Maybe something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm still just gobsmacked by that.
It's criminal.
How they can it is criminal.
I think songwriters need to unionize. That's something that they have in Hollywood for screenwriters, is it not? There's some kind of union.
Yeah, there's the Writers Guild for sure.
Yeah.
There's the Writers Guild East and the Writers Guild West.
The music industry needs something like that to truly, give writers, producers, artists what they justly deserve for sure.
For years and years and years, when I was in radio and interacting with all these artists, and I was in country radio for a number of years, and some of the nicest people I ever met were country music artists. And I'll share a story with you in just a second. But I always said the best deal on the planet was being a songwriter, because not only did you get songwriting royalties from the song, the mechanical recording, but if somebody licensed the song for a TV commercial, you got paid. If it gets played on the radio station or Sirius XM, you get paid. You get a royalty out of that. And I did a parody song once. A Japanese company picked up the parody song and they bought it, and then they put it on karaoke machines and stuff like that. And it was a stupid, silly parody song about the Los Angeles pitcher Hideo Nomo. And it was based on the Banana Boat song.
Okay.
Hideo, Hideo, Nomo pitch and no runners come home. And I made over $15,000 on a stupid parody song for a radio station bit that I was doing, that just because some Japanese record company heard it. And I made $15,000. And I literally took, 5 minutes to write that at my desk at work. So that I always said it was the best deal on the planet, being a songwriter, because you were always getting paid, especially with radio airplay,
publishing
rights, all that kind of stuff. But now you're saying that's evaporated.
It is quickly. Yeah. It's just not there for writers anymore. I love being that aspect too, because you could maintain your anonymity as well. You could write hit songs and still not get pestered at the grocery store. So
right.
That's a good thing, and have checks in the mail. But those checks are just diminished these days. I mean, I can't speak on it wholly because I'm not there as a songwriter, but I can imagine the disdain out of somebody who's more established and seeing how, these numbers are just quickly going away for them. The checks just aren't there anymore. You write a song, it could go platinum, and well, you see these big artists like Paul McCartney, they're selling off their catalog of publishing.
Right.
And that's because there's no money in it to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Somebody offers them a deal to buy it all up and they're selling it off. It's sad. It really is.
So Springsteen sold his for $250 million. I think Dylan sold his for $300 million.
I know.
And it makes sense. I understand that point now.
Makes sense.
I just read an article about Dolly Parton.
Uh-huh.
Dolly Parton wrote I Will Always Love You and Jolene on the same day. Wrote both songs.
Oh, she's awesome.
She's an amazing human being,
Yep.
an amazing talent, an amazing philanthropist with an amazing heart for the people of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
I agree.
She's
and the
just-
whole world.
And the whole world. So she writes both of these songs in one day. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's manager, approaches her and says, Elvis would love to sing I Will Always Love You. But if Elvis is going to sing it, you have to add him as a co-writer on the song. And he gets half the publishing and half the royalties.
Yep.
And Dolly said, nope. She said it was the hardest no I ever had to say. But I'm so glad I did because I wrote it. It's my heart. It's my song. I deserve to earn from it. And then, 25 years later, Whitney Houston does it. And Dolly famously said, being a songwriter and performer, I used to have some money in the bank. After Whitney sang that song, I bought the damn bank. And then she bought Dollywood with it, and now she's used that money to help others, through her philanthropic efforts. But that's just an amazing story of when being a songwriter really meant something, and you could really make some serious money because it's a creative work that people are consuming worldwide for decades.
Sure. And even back then, you could sign a bad deal like John Fogerty,
Yeah.
I mean, look at his movie, or his music was in all these big movies, and he never saw a cent of it. And that was still in the heyday where you still, like you're saying, where Dolly could get paid from her songwriting, That was the end of an era right there, You just don't see that anymore in this day and age, unfortunately. And maybe that's why songs aren't as good as they used to be, because songwriters know, like, why would I put my heart and soul into something that's just going to be sucked up by the big machine and I'll be brushed off their shoulder,
So when you release your album and you sell mechanical sales, do you pay the musicians? Do they get royalties, or did you buy them out?
Well, I guess they work for a nominal fee, It'd be interesting, but I think in my case, it would be a lot of good faith, unless we actually sat down and said, hey, but these musicians, a lot of times, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, or they cut a special deal, they're paid a nominal one-time fee to come in there and work like, a private contractor, a journeyman, if you would. And once that's done, they're paid and that's taken care of, so.
And your song is forever. It's there on vinyl, so to speak, quote unquote,
Yes.
vinyl, digital, your song, a fully produced song of Outlaw in its current state will be out there forever.
Let's hope.
That's great.
Yeah, that's another
Does
reason.
that give you, even though you're not making a lot of money off the streaming and the actual mechanical rights and sales and things like that, does that still make your heart feel good that this song is out there and people hear it and they know it and they sing it and they talk about it and there's a video to it and it could theoretically be out in the world to be enjoyed forever?
The lasting legacy of this and making records is why I do it. It really is. I try to live in the moment, but also it's nice to know that after I'm gone, I'll still be around. And that's a very special thing to me, It's like you can create your own legacy in recording music and releasing it if you do it the right way. If you do it exclusively onto Spotify, I'm scared that, like, once they pull the outlet and the plug and the power drains, it's all gone. But if you can get out there and make a physical release, something tangible that people can buy, take home, cherish, pass on, do what they do with it, it's going to stick around a lot longer.
So how do you make a living? Just strictly on touring then?
Touring, yep.
And you said that when you sell your merchandise and people buy your CDs, that helps fund the production of the next album that you want to do.
It sure does. Merchandise is huge for everything. Not only just, getting through the week and making sure that you have a place to live and eat, but it also goes towards future endeavors. It should, in a perfect world at least. And
so even Taylor Swift is relying on that, but on a bigger scale.
Yeah. Merchandise, yeah. I mean, for sure. Her face, doing, whether it be your T-shirts or you're doing a commercial where she's doing a cameo, it's all about, that putting that out there and reaping money from those, diverse things. If you were to rely solely on one thing in the music business, you'd probably starve. But you have to be diverse. And if I were just to come in and play music without merchandise, I'd be shooting myself in the foot, not leaving anything behind that resonates, nor would I, make as much money.
Right.
So
very interesting. Fascinating.
Merchandise is everything. It really is. Ticket sales and merchandise, is everything. And that's another, onion layer with Live Nation and,
well, absolutely.
Because everybody wants a slice of the pie, but they all want to get it off the sweat and the hard work of people who have never made any money at this. They just want to.
The artists really get screwed over all the time.
They can.
They
really
can.
Yeah. I mean, God forbid you come up with a good product or a good song, anything innovative. Somebody wants to latch onto that and take it or profit off it.
So what's your advice to somebody who wants to write music, produce music, sing music, perform it? Given the landscape today, what's your best advice for somebody who has this dream?
Do it because you love it, and create ties with your fans and friends, and find people that really appreciate what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most. When you come away from everything, whether it be a year or 20 years down the road, you can look back and say, we forged some good experiences between people, which is the whole essence of this magical thing we call music. We're here to be inspired and be better because of music. It's a very special thing, And when we dumb it down to be just like a disposable commodity, then it's just no good for anybody. We need to really hold music in high regard, bring it back into schools, and realize how special it is. So,
I agree with you. The fact that they're cutting arts and physical education from schools and focusing on critical race theory instead of these other things.
Yeah.
Not every kid is a brainiac. Some kids are artists.
Yeah.
Painters, poets, musicians, whatever.
Yeah.
Some are athletes. Some are science nerds. Mm-hmm. We have to have programs that encourage and teach and inspire kids in all of those areas.
Sure. And music reaches our brain like nothing else.
It's the great communicator of the world.
It is universal. Outside of this planet, music works.
I could be sitting in my living room in Pasadena, California, and listen to African music and be transported not only to Africa, but I can feel the emotions of the African people through their music.
Yeah,
and I'm empathetic to what their struggles are and how they love and how they feel. It's just beautiful. Music is the international language.
It really is, and it's
except for opera. Who gives a shit about opera? But
it's definitely a catalyst for human emotion, and connection, and it's a universal thing for sure.
You've toured. You've been on the stage with Chris Stapleton.
Warming up, Shared Festival,
Keith Urban, and things like, all kinds of top tier talents. When you spend a few minutes talking with them, do you ever talk about the business, and do they give you any advice? And if so, what advice do they give you?
Well, a lot of times I really don't even bother them because they're being pestered and they got their own thing to do. But I've had some good little pats on the back. I opened up for Clint Black last summer up north here, and he was on his bus. We didn't speak. The weather was bad, and he didn't want to come out till showtime. Well, that's fine. But once he got on stage, he looked out at me and gave me such a great look, and then went on the microphone and said, "You need to go check out Johnny Young's show tonight," because I was doing a double header.
Right.
And he actually just filled my heart up just by saying, "Hey, wasn't that guy good? Give it up for him. How about that Johnny Young guy?" So, but to more directly answer your question, I've gotten some advice from people in the business that say just stay real, be yourself. Don't try to hop on bandwagons because that you're going to lose your own identity. Just be yourself and do what you love to do. And when people see that, they'll latch onto that.
People respond to it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Like this podcast.
Yeah.
People respond to this podcast because I'm getting real stories from real people, everyday people from all walks of life. Sitting here talking to you.
And your voice is so soothing too. That's part of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. But sometimes I talk to a minister. Sometimes it's a rocket scientist at JPL, and now it's Johnny Young, country music artist.
That's great.
Who is trying to find a way to break in and break out, and you're kind of doing it grassroots style.
Yeah. I don't need to be a big star, but I do love playing for larger audiences and seeing the love and feeling the feeling that comes from the interaction between the audience and the artist. It's magical. Like I said, I love it. I'm addicted to it. And I don't care if it stays small or gets bigger, as long as it's the same emotional kind of tie that we have between each other in that symbiotic relationship, whether it be for 90 minutes or longer,
Have you ever performed at the famed Bluebird Cafe in Nashville where all the songwriters go to get their songs heard?
I have not, and I'm scared to because it's so intimate. I mean, you're literally, it's like us talking here at this table, you're performing and there's the audience right there, but I hear that's, once you play the Bluebird, nothing can go wrong after that. That's like
you should, the songs on your album are strong, fantastic songs.
Thank you.
You have nothing to lose, right?
No, I don't at this point. I just got to get over there, get my ducks in a row. I'm working on album number 2, which is going to be even stronger. And I feel some really good things are going to come from it. I've already been promised a golden ticket to radio out of this next release.
Well, this is the next thing I was going to ask you. Being an independent guy, you don't have a record label behind you whatsoever. How are you kicking the doors in to get radio airplay?
Okay, so I was waking up.
Who are you sleeping with to get the songs on the radio?
I was not sleeping with anybody because I was waking up at 4 a.m. and I have my notebook with all the radio stations I've researched. And so I got on there. I get on the phone and I call people and I get email addresses, and I was actually sending out hundreds of emails a week with Outlaw and another backup song, and just seeing what was coming from that. Well, it's kind of spun off to where a couple people that do radio pitching have now come to me and said, hey, we like your work ethic. We want to help you out. And so we're going to help you get the music out.
So the promo men who tour the country and grease the wheels, so to speak.
Yeah. These radio...
You have to pay them to do that?
Yeah. They don't do it for... Well, I take that back. This one guy's doing it for free right now to just show what he can do, which I really appreciate. And then he's going to charge me hardly anything to do it. So
in my head, I'm looking at you and I'm going, this guy's so much talent and the songs are really strong and really good. How do you break that wall to get through there when you're a one-man band doing it? It's just sheer hard work.
Yeah, and I watched Coal Miner's Daughter when I was a kid, and her and her husband drove to stations and literally knocked on the door and said, this lady needs to get on the microphone and sing, and that's kind of where I came from, and kind of hold on to that stuff too. I'm going to go right to the station and say, hey, here I am, here's what I have. And being that I tour full time, I'm able to do that because I go into little towns and I find the radio station to promote the show. And moreover, I leave them a CD. So everywhere I go, I find a station. I go in there and introduce myself.
And did it work? Were you getting airplay?
I'm getting airplay. I've been played on thousands of stations all over the planet, and it's crazy.
That's great.
It's
And what has been the feedback from these program directors and music directors and their DJs about your music?
It's been really good. Yeah. Everybody loves the stuff. A couple of them said, I'd love to play Outlaw, but Jason Aldean just released a slow song, and so did so-and-so, and it just doesn't fit in our playlist right now. Or, we go automation after 2 p.m. It clicks over to Westwood One or what, a big conglomerate that just feeds it in there. So I found that if you go to these morning DJs, they have a lot more say in what they can do in the morning. So that's what I do. Is I wake up super early. And
I used to be one. Absolutely.
Yeah. And they're more apt to spin you, take requests over the phone. And then I'll do that, based on my shows as well. I'll say, hey, you guys, call up this radio station in the morning and request the song. It's there, And it's a grassroots effort. It takes everybody. I can't do it by myself. thankfully people believe in me, in buying the merch, in spreading the word about what I'm doing,
Well, I'm trying to help you out with this podcast
Hey,
in my small little way, because I think you're fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And I love the fact that you were able to do a song with Georgette Jones. Now, Georgette Jones is the daughter of Tammy Wynette and country legends Tammy Wynette and George Jones.
Yes.
How did you get her to sing your song?
It was just a bunch of luck. We were out there thinking, hey, we want to turn this song into a duet. I had recorded it initially just with myself, and I was like, it's a breakup song. Wouldn't it be cool to have a female voice that, to convey the breakup right there, And we started thinking about it, and it's like, well, I'm nobody. Who can we get, who's not a big time artist? Well, got the daughter of legends, and luckily things worked out. I got a hold of her husband, and they said, hey, we have the time, but she's not going to be recording firsthand because of COVID. So we worked remotely. We were in separate vocal booths, talking to each other on the phone and making sure that, our parts were in sync, and then listening back, and then we'd call each other again and be like, okay, here's where we're at here. And it was kind of an interesting experience. I've never recorded any song that way before, but I'm glad it came together. It was just a magical thing, and I was really blessed to fall in.
Are you happy with the result? I think it sounds fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I am. I'm a little hard on myself. If I had my druthers, I'd probably go back and change a few melodic notes in my singing. But yeah, we were flying by the seat of our pants, and for me, looking back on the experience makes it all worth it.
This is my soul long. It's true. Where we go wrong. Oh, baby, it was ripped in two. Now it's one half hanging on something just like a fool. And the other half is already making its move. This is my soul long. This is my soul long. So long. So long.
To hear people that are going through breakups, I've had people come up to me and say, that So Long song just really resonates with me. I broke up, I got divorced from my husband, and, this song just really reminds me of it. And that's just like, man,
And that song
crazy.
you wrote after your breakup, right? I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah.
You just put your pain into the song.
Yeah. I mean, you can make things relatable when you've experienced them firsthand. You don't have to really stretch your imagination too much. And after you go through a few adverse things, it's good to get it off your chest. Luckily, I have music, and I'm able to do that instead of harboring things or taking it out in a negative, aggressive manner, so.
Do you feel people in country music are nicer, kinder, more welcoming than other genres of music, like, say, hip-hop, rap, top 40, pop, rock and roll?
Country music's different. Like, there's a real community there, and people seem to care about each other a lot. Now, have I met some people with pretty huge egos within that realm as well? Yes, but I would say I agree. Country music is a lot more inviting, and there's a lot of camaraderie there, and you really have to, in most cases, check your ego. Everybody's so modest, and I find like the people that say the least are the most talented and have done the most, and that's where there's a lot of bravado in other genres of music. You almost have to be outlandish and talk yourself up and be that certain mold of whatever it is these days. Is where country is based around being down home and real and simple and having real values. So the older I get, the more, of course, that resonates with me too. So
Have you ever met Garth Brooks?
I haven't. I've been to his publishing house in Nashville on Music Row, and
Did they sign you?
the House of Garth. There was nobody there except the receptionist. But I hear he's very, very nice and personable. But I've just never had the chance to cross paths.
I'm going to tell you this story because I want to reinforce how great and kind the biggest stars in country music are, based on my experience. So I worked in country radio, worked at the biggest country radio station in America at the time, KZLA in Los Angeles, and I was doing the morning show. Garth came to town, and he was doing a special concert at the Hollywood Bowl with the LA Philharmonic.
Wow.
And his label, Capitol, invited me to go interview him at the Hollywood Bowl about the show. And I was like, in person with Garth? Yeah, in person. Just go. And I'm like totally stoked, right? Now, my wife, she and I had just recently married, and she worked also at the radio station in the sales department. So I'm getting my digital tape recorder, my DAT machine, ready to go record this interview with Garth. My wife comes up to me and says, I got to talk to you. I said, honey, I can't. I got to go interview Garth Brooks at the Hollywood Bowl. I don't got time. She goes, no, I need to talk to you right now. I said, honey. And, we started kind of this little tug of war a little bit. And finally, I go into my office, I close the door, I go, what? And she goes, I'm pregnant.
Oh.
I go, what? She goes, I'm pregnant. And this is our first child. And I literally got 15 minutes to get to the Hollywood Bowl because I'm supposed to be there at a certain time. So I go, okay, wow, I love you. This is amazing. Wow, I say all the things a husband's supposed to say at the moment, right? And it's like, oh, that's great, honey. God, I'm so excited. Yeah. But, men react differently sometimes.
Sure.
Fear comes in. You project 25 years, and it's like, how much is this going to cost me? Do I have the skills to be a good father? Am I ready? Am I financially ready? All those type of things. And so my head is spinning. I'm driving to the Hollywood Bowl. I get to the Hollywood Bowl, go through security. They escort me to Garth's dressing room. I knock on the door, and Garth Brooks, who knew, answers his own door. He doesn't have an entourage. It's just Garth in the dressing room. And he was ready for me. He goes, are you John? I go, yeah. Garth, nice to meet you. I'm John Murphy. Do the morning show on KZLA. He goes, yeah, I heard you guys. Come on in. And he's looking at me, and he goes, how's it going? And I go, you want the God's honest truth? He goes, yeah. I go, literally 15 minutes before I got in the car and drove over here, my wife just told me we're expecting our very first child. And I swear to God, Garth Brooks, his eyes teared up, like yours are right now. And he threw his arm around me. He goes, I better buy you a beer. And he walks over to his little mini refrigerator, opens up, pulls out a couple of Coronas, pops the tabs on them, hands me mine. He takes one, we clink Coronas. He says, congratulations. And we both down those beers.
That's great.
And then we had a great interview.
That's totally cool.
And because of that, we named our daughter, it was a girl, named her Taylor, because James Taylor is Garth Brooks' favorite artist, and his first child is named Taylor.
Ah.
So that's my Garth Brooks story. But
that's a good one, man.
The fact that, and by the way, at the time, he was the Taylor Swift of his day. He was bigger than Top 40 radio. He was the biggest star on the planet.
He changed the face of country.
Well, he really did.
Yeah.
He really did. And for him to be so vulnerable with me in that moment, my most intimate moment, really, because I had no time to share it with my family, my parents, my best guy friends. I had to go interview Garth Brooks. So I needed that release, right?
Yeah, and he got it.
And he got it.
Wow.
He got it. And he shared it with me. And I just will never, ever forget that day.
I think good people win sometimes. And you got to think, well, that's how he got to be Garth Brooks, and get there is just by being that type of person,
Well, I think you're that kind of guy.
Well, thank you, man.
I really do. There's something about you I just adore. I love your music.
Thanks so
much. It resonates with me. I love your story. I love how you're trying to do it on your own.
It's the only way I know. I've just been doing it on my own, so.
And I wish you much, much luck. And I hope people on the podcast notes, I'm going to put a link to your page, your Facebook page, and how they can get the album, all that kind of stuff. But the best of luck. I can't wait to hear the second album. And Johnny Young, it's been really, really a pleasure meeting you, and God bless you.
Thank you, my man. I appreciate you too. A lot of fun.
All right. Well, that wraps up episode 25 and season 1 of Across the DinerVerse. And a huge thank you to Club Capella in Ukiah, California for hosting this week's podcast. And by the way, happy 46th anniversary They'll be celebrating all week long. Have a great time. And learn more about them on Facebook at Club-Capella, Capella-Restaurant. Theme music, of course, by Johnny Young. For music, merch, and tour dates, please visit JohnnyYoungCountry.com. All one word, JohnnyYoungCountry.com. Across the DinerVerse, always searching for the heart and soul of America, one diner at a time. Back with Season 2 starting in just a few weeks. I'm John Murphy. What's your story?